All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate everybody's time today. I know a lot of you probably have not met me. I'm Bryan. I'm the manager of competition and recreational programs for USTA Kentucky. So I do oversee all of our junior tournaments we host in the state. And I know that in the last couple weeks, I've really started to see an uptick in the amount of questions I get from parents in terms of when we're going to be starting back up, what that's going to look like, information that you may have seen from Southern. And I'm also going to touch on the KHSAA because the last couple days, I've really gotten a lot of questions about what their policy is. I did speak with them, so I think I can more clearly articulate what their policy is right now in terms of the kids who are playing high school. I'm pretty sure all of you know this, but the USTA is suspended right now through May 31st. So we will not have any type of sanctioned programming, junior tournaments, junior team tennis, anything that is USTA sanctioned through the end of May. We will see if that suspension period is extended at all. I can't say it's a fluid situation. I know that in all of the calls that I've been on at the Southern level, we are talking as if June there will potentially be play. We'll go over what steps that might require, but I've not heard about the suspension period being extended beyond that, but that certainly can change depending on the certain health situation that we're dealing with. Let me give you just 3 levels of update. At the national level, they are canceling the zonal championships and the intersectional championships. If you ever played in either of those are going to be canceled and not played this year. And then the clay court national championships and the hard court national championships are currently looking to be rescheduled. If you look online right now, those original dates will still be listed, but just know that those are highly unlikely to occur on the dates that are listed. But as of right now, those are not canceled. So if those are tournaments that you normally play in, potentially still an opportunity to play in those later in the year. At the Southern level, the Southern Closed Championships are not going to occur the first week of June. Right now, it appears that those are going to be rescheduled for the last week of July, which is the week that the zonals were going to be on. So that would be starting July 30th is what the tentative plan is for the Southern Closed Championships. I was on a call with Southern today, and their plan is for any Southern level 3 or higher, 3s, 2s, 1As, and 1s, those will not be started until late July. It's possible that the weekend before the Southern Closed might be open for some tournaments at that level, but there will not be any tournaments at that level in June, and we'll see how far into July we go before the Southern 3s and higher occur. The Southern Cup, for those who have ever played Southern Junior Cup, that is up in the air, and that's going to come down to a decision on whether team events are safe to occur. The Junior Comp Committee at Southern, as well as the Board of Directors, will make that decision. There's been no decision made on that, or any team events for that matter. So junior team tennis somewhat falls into that group as well, on whether team-based events are going to occur for the remainder of this year. So if you're interested in Southern Cup, you're going to have to stand by on whether that's going to happen or not. Last thing on the Southern Closed is, as of right now, the sites that were listed to host those events will still be the sites. So the sites are not changing at this point, with the dates looking like they're moving to the end of July. Now, from a Kentucky perspective, everything that I tell you is fluid. There's very little that I can tell you for certain, other than we will not be playing in the month of May. All right. We are going to abide by what the governor sets out for his recommendations as best we can until unless we feel like we are in a position to play safely and the governor keeps extending it. It's possible we might petition for early opening, but there's no certainty on that. That is a completely fluid situation. And as of right now, we are just abiding by whatever the governor's recommendations are, along with what the USTA is setting out. You probably have seen that the USTA did release some guidelines for playing safely for individuals as well as for facilities. So as of right now, the recommendation is to only play with your family unit for people who are asymptomatic. And then there's several other recommendations for there, but that still has to abide by what the governor is saying. Okay, so that doesn't mean you're suddenly going to see nets pop up that are down. That's just, the governor's recommendations are the top line. We've got to get through that first before we can get into these other things. All right. Creason. So the Creason's an interesting one. On the call today, each state kind of gave out its plans for Creason. A lot of states are planning to try to hold their qualifiers before the end of July, before the southern close. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty on whether states are going to be able to do that. Some states are planning to do each age division in a different city to try to limit travel as much as possible. As of right now, we don't have dates for Creason. It's not a certainty that we will have it or that it will occur before the southern close. The one stipulation that was given to us was, though, every southern state has to hold their state qualifier for any state to hold their state qualifier. So hypothetically, if the state of Tennessee decides we can't find a date to do this, or we don't think it's safe, or our government won't let us do it, the rest of the states are not going to be able to hold their state qualifier, at least in terms of the points that are going to be given out for that, which are Southern Level 2 points. So it's a high point tournament. But as of right now, every state is attempting to find a good date for that tournament. It will likely for us depend on when the governor allows us to play and the fact that we will have a lot of kids from around the state coming to one location. So we're going to have to meet those guidelines to be able to hold that tournament. Okay, so again, a little uncertainty there, but I think overview is we would like to hold Creason at some point in 2020. And then the entire calendar. I mean, if you go on Tennis Link right now, you will still see tournaments as active on the dates that they are originally scheduled. I would not, under any circumstance, register for a tournament right now because our calendar will likely be drastically changed once we know when we can come back and play. So, we are going to try to get our higher point tournaments rescheduled as many as possible. And Southern wants every state to try to have a similar balance of those tournaments moving forward. But the level 3, 2s, and 1s are overseen by Southern. So they are the ones that will decide where those tournaments end up. And we will have to know, the state office will have to know what dates are taken by those higher level tournaments before we can reschedule some of the Southern level 5s. All right, so we're waiting for Southern's guidance. They're waiting for Nationals guidance before we can really start putting things in place. But know that we are putting some contingency plans on paper right now. Nothing that you would see online, nothing that we're ready to release to you, but I think we're starting to move that direction where we can start to potentially put some tentative dates on tournaments. Again, if you have questions already, feel free to throw those into the chat, and I'll answer them as I see them. I'd rather do that than open up the microphones because we have a lot of background noise. It's a lot harder to hear. But if you don't have access to the chat for some reason, you can unmute and ask a question. I don't mind that. That's not a problem. I did get a question to clarify. All 9 states must hold a qualifier, and if not, the closed is canceled? No. The close will be independent of whether all the states can hold their qualifiers. Using the term qualifier is not even accurate anymore, because starting this year, the Creason no longer acts as a qualifier to get into the Southern Close. The points are the same, but Southern removed the qualifying aspects of our Creason. So no matter where you finish in the Creason, now the spots that we have at Southern Close are filled by ranking, totally. We would hope everybody would still want to play Creason. We think it's an excellent event, but you no longer have to play Creason to get qualified to go to Southern Close. Okay, but the Southern Close Championship will occur if they deem it safe, one way or the other. Whether we hold Creason or whether every state holds their quote-unquote qualifiers, the Southern Close they're trying to put in there. Clay courts. So if you look online now, the clay courts are still scheduled for June. The phrasing used today was that 95% chance those will not happen in June, that they will reschedule those. I think the idea is they will try to reschedule them sometime in the summer, but it's going to really rely on which states are open, which states can travel, where the health situation is, whether that tournament gets rescheduled or not. So I would still say it's uncertain whether that will happen or not, but they are trying to reschedule it for sure. The National Doubles Championship in Orlando has been canceled. I don't know the answer on that. I know at the national level, besides the clay courts and the national championships, there has been a lot more things canceled. I know that doubles is kind of an iffy proposition right now because of obviously the people required and the more close contact. I've not heard that the doubles championship is canceled. I'll try to get you an answer on that and look that up. So again, another question about the qualifier. As of right now, all 9 states are trying to get their qualifier in. I feel confident that we'll be able to do that. The caveat being if the dates are all taken up, or if the health situation gets to a point where for some reason a state can't play for the rest of the year, we might be in a tougher situation. But there is no state that's really wavering on that. It does seem like all the states are wanting to hold their qualifiers this year. It could be on various dates, but everybody's trying to get it in there. Question about the birth date with the Southern Close being moved. That's a good question. I will ask Southern to get you an answer on that, because if it is moved up a month or back a month, some kids, I guess, would then lose their eligibility to play. I don't know if they'll make a special exemption. I do know when it comes to rankings, because someone had asked about, with no tournaments being played in the last several months, would kids who were aging out in this time frame, in the March to June time frame, would they be given an extra 3 months in their age bracket because they missed out? The answer I got on that was no. That it's unfortunate they missed out on those last 3 months, but once they age out, they age out. So I'll get you an answer on the close specifically, but I don't know for sure, and I wouldn't be confident that they would make an exemption there. Zonals are canceled. Someone asked that. Zonals are canceled. I got a UTR question. We don't have any connection with UTR, to be honest with you, so I can't really make any comment on changes to UTR and what they'll be doing. I really I don't know an answer to that at all. I did want to update everyone on KHSAA because I've gotten a lot of calls and emails from a variety of people about KHSAA. I know they put out a statement a few days ago that was I guess not clear enough on what they were intending. I hope if you haven't, you should go to the KHSAA website today. They put out a new document kind of outlining their restrictions that I think was very clear on what they what their rules are right now, but I'll give you the high points. Their big thing above everything else is that they want no play under any circumstance, even if you're with just your family members, but especially with the coaches, with the teammates, anybody on the school facilities. So do not get caught going to any school facility and using the tennis courts, the weight room, the track, anything. Do not get caught doing that. I will tell you that above everything is what they really are going to monitor, is use of the school facilities. Because KHSAA is overseen by the Kentucky Department of Education, obviously a government group. And so they have to follow the governor's recommendations, and the schools are shut down. So just, you really cannot use any school facilities. We cannot use school facilities until it's approved. We'll see when the suspension period ends if the school facilities will be open. It is possible that they may not this summer, that they won't be open until the fall, in which case we'll have to adjust. But that is the big thing. Do not use school facilities. The coaches are supposed to have no physical contact with the players under any circumstance. No one-on-one lessons, no practices, no meetings anywhere. There is a note on there about virtual meetings in some capacity. But the big thing is the coaches need to stay away from their players pretty much under any circumstance. Now, on private instruction, in terms of getting lessons from someone that is not your coach, they did clarify that because I think there was some confusion on that. Technically, the governor's recommendations don't allow you to do that. So the KHSAA does not approve of anyone taking a private lesson, but they do emphasize on there, if you choose to take a private lesson, you do so at your own risk, and you should do so using, social distancing, safe guidelines, etc. But they don't approve of that. Okay, so if you're taking private lessons, you certainly run the risk of getting in trouble, but I think that's not what they're really trying to monitor so much as they are no use of school facilities. So you take your own risk on that, but they don't approve of that. But if you do that, you just need to be very careful with what you're doing. And then there is an expectation that when USTA is allowed to open back up, the governor says it's okay, that those policies and those restrictions will then go away, and that kids will have full ability to play USTA tournaments once we start back up. All right, so I don't think there's any real possibility that kids can't play USTA for the remainder of this year. I just don't. As long as the governor says it's safe, the USTA says it's safe, KHSAA is going to follow what the governor says. Okay, so I would not panic about no access to USTA events in 2020. I don't think that's going to happen at all. All right, let me go back to the questions because a few more came in. Would the crease be singles only? That is very much a possibility. We are going to take guidance from our organization, from National, on if doubles play can be allowed. Obviously, I don't need to state the added risk of playing doubles over playing singles. But nothing's been decided yet on whether doubles play will be allowed or not. But I would say that is certainly on the table, that at a sanctioned tournament, the doubles is not going to happen for a while. Yeah, rescheduling Creason and the aging out, as I already mentioned. I mean, Creason obviously is our event, but if Southern will ultimately make that decision on whether they will exempt kids to play in Creason if they would have been eligible in May, but they're not eligible in July, for instance. Will they get an exemption to play their age division? I don't know, but we would not make that decision. Southern would make that decision because it's a Southern Level 2 event, and those are the ones that they oversee. Clay courts, yeah, when I say clay courts, that's the National Clay Court Championships is what I'm speaking of when I talk about that. Yeah, there's a question about petitioning to get Time extended for clay and hard courts. Whoever sent me that question, clarify what you mean. Do you mean you want it later in the year, or are you talking about the age situation? So clarify that so I don't give the wrong answer on that. Will rankings be adjusted? Okay, that's a good question. Today was the first time I heard that it's possible that rankings are going to be frozen through the fall. So like through September was the month thrown out. So that let's say we get back to play in June or July, that those June, July, August tournaments, it's not an attempt for everybody to play as much as they can to get ranking points, as much as it is everyone gets back into the flow of things, gets a little practice, we, limit injuries, that kind of thing. We're not worried about the rankings until we get to September. But that's, again, a fluid situation. That's not been set. I do know, though, initially when this suspension period started, that the rankings were frozen, and whenever they came back, they were going to give kids 15 months of results, as opposed to normally you get 12. So I think they are going to adjust the rankings to make up for the missed time. We'll see come January what happens then. It's possible then we'll just essentially restart there. But I do think they are really thinking about the rankings, and there will be some adjustments made to those. I think this next question is fantastic, and I don't know if you're ever going to get a good answer on it, but the question is, if play restarts at different times in different regions of the country, how will that affect the entire point situation? I think that is a big reason why there's discussion about just freezing the rankings for a lot of the year, is because, some states in the South have already started potentially reopening. Kentucky is going to start slowly reopening here in a couple weeks. But obviously there are areas in the Northeast and Washington and places like that where they're not close to reopening. I did not know this, but I heard today that in Miami, they're not allowing people to be together in more than groups of 4, and obviously that limits anything you could hardly do in tennis. So yeah, I think it's inevitable that certain places in the country are going to open up at different times than others. We will see. National will probably guide the ship on that and make that decision. But today I got the sense that the freezing of the rankings is something that is a legitimate possibility for a decent amount of months when we get back into it, because they don't want certain regions gaining any advantage playing more high-level tournaments while other regions just can't. Yeah, so I did get a clarification on that aging up question. I don't know. I don't make that decision. The state won't make that decision in terms of the exemptions. I just know when I asked the question specifically about the rankings, that I was told that exemptions were not going to be given for kids who aged out in this time of suspension. We'll see if that changes in terms of being able to enter tournaments or not. But I don't have high confidence that that will be given, but it's certainly plausible. And that's being talked about for sure. Will USTA continue with the plan for open borders for play in 2020, or has that been delayed? I can tell you that I have heard that on the table is potentially limiting kids to playing only in their state. And I think that Southern is going to limit how many tournaments they're going to offer where kids are going to be coming in from other states. I don't know if there's going to be a complete limitation, because obviously they're trying to reschedule Southern close. They're trying to reschedule national hard courts. They're trying to reschedule national clay courts. So they're clearly not shutting things down completely. But I think there will be a higher emphasis for sure to play as much in your state as possible and travel as little as possible until we are really getting through this thing, which could be for the remainder of this year. I haven't heard anything that says for sure, like, you will only be allowed to play in Kentucky for the remainder of this year. I haven't heard that, but I think there will be a serious cutting back so that it limits everyone from doing too much travel moving forward. Increase in dates and notice. how much notice will you get for creasing dates? It will depend on when we're told essentially we could hold a tournament like the creasing. So generally we have around 300 kids that play in the creasing, unique kids. In addition to, their parents, their siblings, we have officials, we have staff. I mean, it's 400, 600 people that will come in to Louisville at 6 sites. The governor is going to have to release us to have that kind of gathering to hold creasing. But once we know we can do that, I would imagine the creasing date will be set very quickly and you will be notified immediately. And I think you will be given plenty of notice to plan that. I don't think we're going to know and then in a week we're going to be playing creasing. I would not imagine that's going to happen. All right, any more questions, throw those in the chat. As I mentioned in my email, I will hang on this call until the last person gets off. I will answer as many questions as need be. I just want to recap my biggest points that I want to talk about. Everything that I'm talking about is fluid, okay? The only thing I can tell you for certain is we're not going to have anything in the month of May. Everything else is on the table. Everything else is a fluid situation. I will inform you all every time I hear something that I think is important. I know you all are trying to keep your family safe and your kids safe, but also plan out your calendars, and everyone's itching to kind of get out of the house and play a little bit. I get all that. But safety is going to absolutely be number one. If we don't feel it's a safe environment to do something, if we've not been given approval by our governor to do it or the national organization, we're not going to do it. We're just not. So everything is just a very fluid time right now. And so I just need everyone to kind of be as patient as possible and know that I will give you the information as I get it. And I just want to emphasize again, if you have not, and I will send out a recap as well as the recording of this. If you've not seen our playing safe guidelines, I would absolutely look at those. I think they're fantastic. If you do want to, if you have a court you have access to and you want to go and play with your family unit and do that, we've given you some guidelines on things that you should do to kind of keep yourself as safe as possible. Let's see, a few more questions. How can we play Southern July 30 without playing out of state? That's what I'm not sure. I think as of right now, technically we have a policy in Kentucky to not travel out of state. If we hear that policy is going to extend through August, for instance, then we will notify Southern, hey, Kentucky kids can't come. They cannot go to these tournaments because we're not allowed to travel out of state. And I would think Southern will listen to that. They want all 9 states to have access to as many tournaments as possible, as many high-level tournaments as possible. They just really want to try to keep this as fair as possible for the rankings and for points, and we understand that that's important. So the July 30th date, that is not set in stone. That is just a target date right now, but they're going to really judge on how many states even have access to travel at that point, and is it going to be safe to travel to these various sites around the South to even hold a tournament like that. Clarification on 2021 open borders. Everything I've heard has not changed what the policies are going to be for 2021. I think the tournament structure is going to still be what it was planned to be, which is essentially an open border situation starting in January 1st. For us, as those who have been on other webinars that I've hosted, the changes that are coming in 2021 are fantastic for us because it opens up Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, wherever you live in this state. I am sure that there are tournaments that are closer to you than the ones you've normally had to go to in Georgia and Alabama, South Carolina, wherever the case may be. So you will have access to those tournaments starting next year for the full points. And so I've not heard that's going to change. I think it would require the health situation to really stay bad or decline for that to change. But right now, the focus is mainly when are we going to get back and what's the calendar going to look like at that point. But 2021 seems to still be on track. I know we've been doing some trainings for tournament directors on the programs that they use and registration, and there's been no discussion that that is going to change on January 1st. Selection for the national clays and hards. Expanding the draws from by 64 kids to a 256 draw. Not heard that. I think they're just trying to figure out if they're going to hold it at all right now and what dates they're going to hold it before they decide selection. So I don't really have a better answer on that. I know that it's unfortunate that some kids were probably going to use these few months to try to gain points to get into those tournaments or to get into Southern Closed or whatever the case may be. So, I think selection of those events could potentially change from what it normally has been, but I've not heard that the draws are going to be expanded in any way. But as I said, with everything I've said, everything is on the table. I think Southern and National have been more open to trying to be creative to different ideas than I've ever seen. So I think that everything is on the table. All right, let's see. Okay, that's all I've got. Like I said, I'll just hang on here. If anybody wants to put any other questions onto the chat, or if you want to hang around and just speak to me, that's totally cool. I will hang as long as I can. I will send out this recording to everybody in case you missed something. And, my email box is always open. If you call us at the office, the phones are forwarded to go to my cell phone, so you can speak to me that way. I'm available and working, so do not hesitate to reach out if you think of other things. Like I said, I'll keep you informed every time I hear something important that is set or changes. You'll know about it as soon as I know about it. So don't be worried about that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Continue to be safe. And you'll hear from me soon, I guess. Bye. I'm going to stop the recording unless someone has a question. All right, I'll just stop the recording.